Salafists controlled by Wahhabites, all attacking, and that's what you see. That's the 17 countries where U.S. embassies are under attack. The goal, an October surprise, Carterize Obama, install Mitt Romney with an austerity dictatorship backed up by the widespread denial of the right to vote. And I guess we're having a little bit of technical difficulty today, but I think we can continue. Now let's just, we'll look at this incident in Benghazi, right? The terror corridor we talked about in the last segment. I had written back in March of 2011, based on that West Point study, this is terrorist paradise. This is where you have more of these Salafis. This is the land of the Senussi Brotherhood. This is the land of the monarchy of King Idris and his royal court, fomented by the British against the Italians, and then used by British intelligence coming from Egypt against Gaddafi over many years, and now they've won out and they've taken over. And this is now an area which is chock full of death squads, heavily armed death squads running wild. And they had already attacked this same consulate in Benghazi before, using an IED, right? One of these roadside bombs had been set off there. So this was known to be a very, very hot corner. So much so that in addition to the public consulate, which was a place that could be recognized and people could go to, right? You need a visa, you go to the consulate. But there was also a secret safe house apartment of the U.S. in the same area, right, the same town, and that safe house was thought to be secret. So the idea was if a death squad comes and starts attacking the U.S. consulate, Benghazi, that the personnel can get out of there and flee and take refuge in this secret safe house apartment. And the story was that the people who did the killing, the death squad that actually did all this, a highly trained death squad with professional characteristics, they knew exactly where the secret safe house was. The safe house had been completely compromised. Therefore, had the U.S. structure been infiltrated, there's also the question about the Libyan security guards, right? They seem to have disappeared. They ran away. There are conflicting reports. One says that there were 10 Libyan guards killed. Another one says none of them killed, they all ran away. Why was that? Was it because of a general ideological sympathy with the attackers, or was it because of a specific suborning through an intelligence network? We always tend towards the latter, if everything else is equal. The other issue is the background of it. The fact that there had been a build-up to this. It's a two-level operation. You've got a crowd of dupes who are lower-level people, and the crowd of dupes are there for a protest which is, partly peaceful, partly violent, right? A few Molotov cocktails, a few things like this, right? Sort of, low-level violence. And then you've got a group which is a death squad out to kill and assassinate the diplomatic personnel. Even at the two-level area, right, you can say that the crowd of dupes was motivated by this film, right, which many of them have not seen, or they've been told that this is a terrible thing. And then we're also told that the actual death squad seems to have been motivated by the desire to avenge the death of al-Libi, Libi being a top leader of Al-Qaeda, Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, and so forth, who had been killed by a U.S. drone strike 4 to 6 weeks to 8 weeks in advance. I'm skeptical about all of that. I see it as this is a coordinated operation. It's all done too much on a clock to make it, spontaneous, sociological. You have to remember, we called attention in the spring of last year to the presence of Hasidi Hassadi Belhaj, this top leader of the Patsy milieu. This is a double agent, a mercenary. He became military governor of Tripoli for a while. These are his people. Or imagine the commando that killed General Yunus so that General Hifter, the guy who had been brought in from the CIA, from Langley, could take over the armed forces. Now, whichever way this cuts, you get the idea, right? You're in a wilderness, a jungle of competing covert operations, but you get the general idea. So none of this, in my view, is spontaneous. It's all orchestrated, and these components are put up. This movie put up, and the other stuff put up as a means of making this plausible to the dupes around the world. Now, let's go a little bit further. We've got to also look at the ambassador, and that is Ambassador Stevens. Now, what do we know about him? There's an interesting piece in French, which has, you can see it on the internet. It's written by Bernard-Henri Lévy, and Bernard-Henri Lévy, remember, is the fake nouveau philosophe of Once Upon a Time, who is now, he was a top advisor to Sarkozy, and he seems to be one of the people who pushed Sarkozy as hard as he could to get this done. Obviously an operative of somebody. Bernard-Henri Lévy has written a kind of an obituary for Ambassador Stevens, where he says, this was a great guy, this was my friend, this was somebody I admired, and we'll tell a little bit about it. He says, this is now the victory of the imbeciles. The imbeciles have won out. In other words, the people who did the killing were stupid. No, I'm sorry, stupid is not enough. This is an operation. Now, there is a legitimate question. Why would somebody like Stevens be sacrificed in this kind of an operation? And that is not 100% clear. So what does BHL tell us? That on March 14th, 2011, Bernard-Henri Lévy met with Jabril. Remember Jabril, the guy with the big forehead? You've seen him, right? He became the head of the government of the Transitional National Council, the rebel council of Benghazi. And Jabril was begging France and the U.S. to intervene militarily. That was going to happen then on the 19th of March, right? The bombing started on the 19th of March. Jabril was there in Paris, and Hillary was there in Paris. And what BHL, Bernard-Henri Lévy, says is that he got a meeting with Hillary for Jabril, and part of the meeting was Ambassador Stevens. So he calls him the one of the secret artisans of the freedom of Libya, artisan secret de sa liberté. So he's one of the secret artisans of the freedom of Libya. In other words, an important behind-the-scenes operative. And then BHL is obviously quite smitten by Stevens. He says that he met him also a little bit later on the Brega Road with his dazzling smile and his elegance, even out there in the desert. So, again, Bernard-Henri Lévy's conclusion is that the killers are simply imbeciles. Well, we'll talk more about this in a minute here on World Crisis Radio. Welcome back to